Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout Podcast. This is episode 39, and as you can see, I'm on my own today. Ben has gone out of town. In fact, he's out of the country. But don't worry about it. Me and producer Gibbo are going to hold it down for you here today. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to us here on YouTube as we work towards 150 subscribers. We truly do appreciate every single one of you who have supported us over the past 9 months. Can you believe it? It's been 9 months. You can also find us on any podcast platform you like, such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or on a new platform that we just found out recently called Boomplay. When you Google Hoth Hangout, that's one of the podcast platforms that comes up. So go follow us over there. You can also find us and follow us on our socials at Hoth Hangout on Twitter, Instagram, and of course TikTok. So, without further ado, let us start up this.
Hello?
Hello?
Joey?
Alex, what's up?
Hi. So I just heard that Ben is out of town. He's out of the country. And I was wondering, do you need a co-host this week? Because there's a lot to talk about. And I think that I would do great on the show this week to be able to help you out with getting through some Star Wars news. Does that sound, could we do that?
That actually sounds pretty fun. I mean, it's kind of last minute,
Awesome.
but
Yeah.
let me see. Gibbo, do you think we could bring Alex in here for the show? Is there anything that you could do, you think? Oh,
Hi.
hey, what's up, Alex?
How are you?
Good. Oh wow, Gibbo is pretty amazing.
He's
Look,
amazing.
He just literally came up with that and was able to bring you in. Thank you, Gibbo.
So good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, everyone, this is my friend Alex.
Hi.
We are streamer friends over on Twitch TV. We've been friends there for actually it's been quite some time. So
It has. Yeah.
it's been over a year for sure. So I'm
Mhm.
not quite sure where we're at with all that, but yeah. We talk about Star Wars all the time, so it
We do.
seems like a good fit. As Ben is out today, that you can come in and just fill in for him. What do you think?
I am very excited to be here. Can't wait. There's lots of fun Star Wars news. So very
Yes,
excited.
absolutely cool. All right, well, let's get on with the news for the week here. Um, what do we got? So the first thing that we come up with is there was an article on Screen Rant talking about a interview that Rosario Dawson was a part of, who basically said that Dave Filoni said Ahsoka season 1 is basically Rebels season 5. So there isn't a huge surprise there. At least
Mhm.
for me, I was kind of hoping that's kind of where it would start off. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this continuing on with the Rebels series going into this first season?
Really excited about it when I had read about it. I think I remember the whispers kind of happening, especially because she was in Mandalorian season 2. There was mentions of that. And I don't know if it's still the case. So I watched Rebels up until about season 2, and
Mhm.
then it kind of dropped off on watching it. So I don't know if it's still when I was watching it then, it felt very cult kind of following at that time
Mhm.
because it was a cartoon. So
Right.
if you would talk to people who'd seen the movies, they were like, it's just a kid's cartoon type of thing. But I'm really excited about it because I feel like it's really picked up traction. And I think with this addition of saying, hey, this is continuing that story, I think it's going to get a lot more people looking up what is Star Wars Rebels, kind of going
Mm.
and watching that all back. Especially, it's great because I think they're all on Disney Plus now. So I think
Yeah,
it's going to
right.
be great for the series.
Yeah, and one thing that me and Ben always talk about is, although these are animated series, just like you said, like, oh, these are just for kids.
Right.
This isn't necessarily for me. You
Right.
can get a lot of information, a lot of lore, a lot of
Yeah.
content from these animated series,
Right.
and especially something like Rebels. And you kind of nailed it a little bit there when you kind of called it a cult. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as a cult because
Right.
fans maybe
It's
get
Star
a little
Wars.
upset,
Right.
but you
Right.
know what I'm saying. Yeah, like as a fandom, we do love our Star Wars, and we do like to
Yes.
kind of call certain things our own and things like that. So there's
Right.
definitely a Rebels sect the fandom, and
Agreed.
me being part of it too. So I'm very excited to
Oh,
see
yeah.
what's going to happen. We did see characters like Sabine and Hera, of course, in the trailer.
Mhm.
We know Thrawn's making a comeback, so it's going to be very, very fun to see how they're going to uh, adapt them into live action, and see the
Right.
personalities and stuff like that. So yeah,
Right.
I'm definitely very excited to see what comes of the season. It's going to be out in the end of August 23rd, I believe.
That seems crazy, but I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's what, two little less than 2 months away
Yep.
from the premiere there. So be sure to come back. We're going to do some live reactions for those as well, and it's gonna be a good time. So
Mhm.
Ahsoka, basically season 5 of Rebels.
Yay.
um Going on to the next thing, something you and I really connect on is gaming on all
Yes.
types of levels. Star Wars Outlaws, we kind of mentioned in our last episode. There was a trailer that came out. There is now a 10-minute gameplay video that has come out on YouTube now. Expected to come out in 2024 by Ubisoft. I think that's how I never know how to say that that company's
Ubi
name.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ubisoft, Ubisoft,
yeah, so some that company, right?
all that, yeah.
Sometime in 2024, and I said this before. I'm glad that we're getting content already for this, because from the first time I even knew that they were working on any Star Wars game was at the beginning of 2023. So
Mhm.
now we're here 6 months later, and we are
Right.
getting all this footage. We're getting a trailer. We're getting this 10-minute
I
gameplay.
know.
So and we're showing here for those watching on YouTube, we're showing a little bit of the gameplay here. What were your impressions on the gameplay as we watched it?
Honestly, I'm ready to play it. Can it be 2024 already so I can get into all of these different worlds? I think here at the end, I know near the end of the trailer, just the vibrant backgrounds that they were showing where she was walking through the different towns and the different,
Right.
I'm assuming, I don't know if they're planets or what, but my thought is it just makes it seem like it's such this big world. And I think we've had that a lot of times with Star Wars games where they want it to feel more vast, because obviously it's just a big universe. I mean, you're in space, obviously, so there's lots of stories to tell. Um, but the other thing I noticed, and they're showing it right here, is the ability to kind of choose your own adventure, if you will. You can decide, do I want to be sneaky? Do I want to, now you have this sidekick with you that you can utilize to move things around. So I'm really excited. I will definitely be playing this when it comes out, and definitely will be on my must play list.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like in all Star Wars games, you always have to have that little sidekick, whether it's a little droid.
Mhm.
I don't
Yes.
know the name of this particular species that it is, but it basically looks like an axolotl.
It does.
That's what me and Ben
I was gonna say.
it's basically a little axolotl in Star Wars. So axolotls
Yes,
are canon, everyone.
they're
But,
canon. Mhm.
but yeah, it's such a cute thing, and because you always have to have that little cute guy, that little cute sidekick by your
Yes.
side. There was in Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order.
I was gonna say.
What was the name of that droid? I can't remember it now.
I cannot remember it, but I
Not
know what you're
Dio.
talking about.
Dio is from BD10. I think BD something. BD
Yes, it's
BD1.
BB something.
Yeah. Um,
But yes,
but yeah. So
it's
I think it's a must-have for any Star Wars game like this.
for sure.
Did you have a favorite part in the gameplay that you really were ready to do ready to play?
I actually very much so, as I've talked about multiple times, I am not an RPG-esque type person. I really like just getting in on the action. So
Mhm.
normally this part right here, I'd be like, okay, I love this. I'm ready to just go shoot things up, explosions, all the things. But I think in the part after she's escaping and she goes to, it looks like maybe a refuge, or she's going to talk to somebody, and you can
Mhm.
kind of decide, do I want to swindle this person? Do I want to smooth talk them? How do
Mhm.
I want to handle these conversations? And then that kind of changes the way that that character sees you later on, you know? So if you run into that person again, you may need to think about, okay, did I steal from them or was I nice to them? Because I
Right.
might need to think about that. So that is something that I find very intriguing of, okay, so not only can I choose how to move through those battle sequences, but in addition to that, I can also decide how do I want to play these, other characters in this game.
Mm.
Again, going back to the choose your own adventure type of thing, even though I'm sure some of it's limited, but that excites me to be
Right.
able to decide what I want to do. Essentially an outlaw. You're deciding
Right.
who you want to be.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited for all that. I'm excited for any vehicles like this. We were showing like a speeder bike
Oh,
type thing.
yes. Yeah,
You basically at any point can jump in a ship and go into space. That I think that is just crazy,
that
and
was
just
so
jump
cool.
into hyperspace. Because normally when you play these games, when you jump into the ship, there's like a cut scene, and
Mhm.
you all of a sudden you're in space, or all of a sudden you're on the planet. You're actually going from the planet. It goes through
That's
the
true.
atmosphere and things like that. So just like little details like that, I'm super excited
Agreed.
for in 2024.
Yes, agreed. They did a great job with the gameplay trailer. It's
Yeah.
very excited.
Yeah, now we gotta wait. Now we gotta wait
I
for
know.
for
Now I have to
for
be
how long.
patient,
Yeah, they should have waited at least a little longer for this, because
right?
this kind of really came out of nowhere for me anyway. This like
Yeah,
really came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden, oh look, here is a trailer. Oh, here's 10 minutes of gameplay. I'm like, oh, that really blindsided us in like the best way.
right. Usually they would give you a trailer and then you'd wait a while in the gaming
Mm-hmm.
community sometimes, and then you'd get the gameplay trailer maybe months leading. Okay, we have a
Mm-hmm.
date. Let's get to
Right.
see some gameplay. So this
Right.
was
Yeah.
really a nice surprise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Star Wars Outlaws comes out in 2024. Where you'll find me and Alex playing during that time.
Yes. Yeah.
um, but moving on, what do we got here next? Next, for the month of June was Pride Month. And one thing that we like to do here is always celebrate all the different cultures and things that go out month by month here. And of course, June being Pride Month here, did want to celebrate that and say Happy Pride Month to everybody. Here is, and one thing that I did want to showcase here were a couple of the actresses and actually characters inside of Star Wars that identify as LGBTQ. Um, a couple of them on the lower right, we got Dr. Aphra from the comics, the Dr. Aphra comics. In Rise of Skywalker, there are actually two, Commander Daisy and Roby Tice, you see on the top there, who we didn't really know anything about until the very end when they ended up sharing a kiss after pretty much at the end there. And then there's also from the Andor series, we have Vel and Cinta, also in a relationship as well. So I think they're getting better with the representation. I still think they can do more.
Yeah.
Just like I feel like they are putting it to the forefront as far as not only representing anybody in the LGBTQ communities, but pretty much all cultures. And I think they're just doing a better job
Agreed.
at trying to be more inclusive. There are actually even more characters in like books and other things that I didn't even know of. I've been, with it being Pride Month, I try to educate myself to see, a little bit more of that. So there's actually more in like books and all that, but you really want to see it on the big screen. You do want to see it in shows and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on the representations of this community in Star Wars?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of what you'd said before, I think they're slowly starting to come out of their shell with a lot of these with these characters. And on the big screen, I think is where we want to see them the most, because obviously that's where Star Wars gets a lot of its exposure. I mean, think
Right.
about all the movies that they've brought, and then not only that, but now you have all of these shows. Now that Disney
Yeah.
Plus is this huge service, you have all of these shows that they can utilize for that.
Mhm.
I think I actually had read an interview for the director with Andor that had
Mhm.
mentioned, the relationship between Val and Cinta. And he had talked about, it was something that he had always had in his mind. And he
Mm.
said, no one really told us, no, we need to do this, or no, we don't need to do this. We just
Yeah.
wrote it and it was there. And I think
Wow.
that's the way it should be. You should
Mhm.
just automatically think, we're going to write these characters in. And I will say with Dr. Aphra, I didn't know anything about that character. So thank you, because I went down a like all the fandom pages to read about her, and I thought it was great because I'm like, now I might buy some of these comic books because I need to
Right.
find out more about these characters. So I think it's just obviously the more we can get them in live action, I think the better it will
Mhm.
be, because they are giving representation to all sorts of things, but it seems like it's just slowly taking some, it's a very slow build.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to get there, but I definitely love having these characters that we can say, hey, these are some great characters that they've written in, and we'd like to know more if you
Right,
can
yeah.
just give us more. Right.
Right. And I just and kind of going reiterating that, I mean, I feel like good now that I mentioned Dr. Aphra and you know all about it now. But yeah, if you when anybody gets a chance, if you could
Hmm.
read the Dr. Aphra comics, they're so good.
So good.
I'm waiting for her to end up in live action at some point. It would be an easy win for so many fans, I think.
After the story, like the reading the fandom and the comic books, I mean, I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready for her to have her own show. I'd
Yes.
watch it.
Oh, you got that? Dave Filoni, you on that? You heard it right here.
You heard it right here.
We are certain that Dave Filoni is one of the 125 subscribers here on the Hoth Hangout. So
Yeah, I'm pretty
yeah,
sure
just
he
wanted to
heard
make
me.
sure. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, in addition to that discussion here, Star Wars also came out with some Funkos to celebrate Pride Month as well, which I thought was super cool.
Yes,
And guess what? I have them. So they were when so little background. So I go to Target a lot, like you do,
I do.
and
Same.
basically go to the same spots. The Funko aisle, I'll go to the Star Wars section and Legos and the usual stuff.
Yes.
Like you do
Right.
as an adult.
Like you do. Yeah.
Um. So and these two were just glaring at me, and I'm like, of course I'm gonna grab those. So we've got a couple of droids that show their
I love
pride
these.
off. We've got R2D2 here in the lovely colorful rainbow representing Pride Month, and we also have another cute little droid, BB-8,
I love
also
both of these.
doing this. I mean, yeah, the cutest little droids anyway, and now you've got
Mhm.
them supporting the Pride Month. So yeah, these are very cool. As you know, I'm a collector of all things Star Wars, and these will be staying in the box. So I'm one of those guys. So,
I
but yeah,
love
and
it.
here's the artwork on the back. Kind of just oops, it's not quite showing here. There you go. But yeah, I thought these were very cool pickups. I think they have done other Pride Month Funkos as well. So it's good to continue on with that tradition every year in the Pride Month, especially with Funkos because who doesn't love Funkos?
Right. It's just more for the collection.
That's right. Yeah, my wife loves the collection of just all the stuff that I
I
got.
bet
Yeah.
she does.
Yeah, but she does. You should see our basement. Our basement is just littered with all of these figures and Legos. And to be fair though, she did build some of the Legos herself too. So
Okay, so she
that was
helped.
my way to be like, "Oh, do you want to build one?" And then I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we should put it here." And I'm like, "Yes." Well, like this is as much as your fault as it is mine.
Right, exactly. Like you helped make this. So,
So perfect. But yeah, Pride Month. Happy Pride Month again to everybody. And I hope you had a very good and safe one as well. Well, one thing we wanted. Obviously, this was all planned. We wanted you to get on here, Alex. It wasn't exactly a snap of the fingers and you were here.
what?
Um,
Oh,
well, I mean, kind of.
yeah.
But yeah, one thing I wanted to bring on Alex today, to of course talk about Star Wars and her fandom,
Yes.
uh, and apparently, which I found just recently, her husband here,
This
Harrison Ford.
this lovely man
If you
right
are
here.
watching the YouTube version of the show of the podcast here, you will see Harrison Ford in the middle of us, and congratulations. I had no
Thank
idea. So
you.
yeah,
Going on, 5 million years now. No,
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
Yeah, I really got into Star Wars at a very early age.
Hmm.
So, and like Harrison Ford was kind of a staple in our home.
Sure.
So it just cemented like, oh, he's in this thing. Oh, I mean, Indiana Jones, I can go
Hmm.
on forever. And so
Yeah.
it just has kind of become, it's my thing. If I could get a life size standee poster of him in my room, I would.
Mm,
Like that's my Funko Pop.
Interesting.
Can I just fill
Birthday
my room?
ideas for
Write
Alex.
that
okay.
down. Yeah.
Thank her for on the episode sending.
Okay. But yeah, great. So like, what was your first Star Wars memory?
I would think I was trying to think back on this, and I really think it started so my dad and his brothers very much grew up in that type of, my dad was born in 1965. So by the time he was 12, Star Wars was like the movie to see. And so because of them kind of growing up in that, late 70s, 80s timeframe, they were just big on everything, and that kind of went into my upbringing.
Mm.
So they were very much like, we've got to show her, because I was the only, child in this big Mexican family at the time, all of these wonderful things. Well, of course, they're all boy things. They're all things that you would think, well, I mean, this is not, I mean, my mother was like, don't let her play with the action figures. Like, let's be reasonable here.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that stuck. So
Mm.
I think I remember just them sitting me down, my dad turning on the television and was like, here's Star Wars. And if you love it, you love it. And if I mean, it didn't work on my sister. She is not a Star Wars fan at all, but he got one of us right. So there's two of us, 50-50 shot. And from then on, it was just kind of like this obsession with watching all of the movies. I mean, I don't know how many like VHS tapes back in the day I went through and like rewound and watched over and over and over again, between episodes 4, 5, and 6. And obviously had an obsession with Harrison Ford for the longest time, as a 10-year-old would. So
Fair.
it's very early memories. And then I it was the Halloween. Like, I would dress up as the characters, and I wish I was trying to find pictures before we got on here. Like, I know there's pictures of it, but I mean, I would go all out, like just trying to be the makeup, everything. Princess Leia was a big thing for me, trying to get my mom to do space buns, all
Okay.
of the stuff. So it was just very much ingrained in me early on, and then just has kind of morphed into that. And then obviously it's like, I got to talk to everyone about like, oh, wait, you like Star Wars? Well, you're automatically my best friend at this point. So yeah. So it's been fun.
That's so cool. I mean, I know you mentioned it with particularly your dad. Were there other like cousins or other friends that you really gravitated towards because of Star Wars, or did you have any other outside influences for it as well?
It was my uncles and I are very close in age, and so it was very much kind of growing up with them. I didn't have brothers growing up. I mean, I have a sister, but we're 9 years apart. I'm
Mhm.
older. So I was an only child for much
Right.
of my Star Wars upbringing. And I think my uncles really helped hone in that love of just what things can we
Mm.
show her from their childhood. I think we're about 9 years apart, 10 years apart, between each of us. And so it was just like the same was for video games. I mean, I know that's a little off topic, but same thing like, hey, there's this thing called a PlayStation. Do you want to play Tomb Raider? This game called Tomb Raider? Like, what is this? It
Mhm.
was just that type of thing where I was over there every weekend at my
Mm.
grandma's house, and they were there, and it's like, let's show her these things. I remember the the infamous Star Wars holiday special, like that was a thing
Oh
in
my
our
god.
house.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's supposed to be for Thanksgiving now that I I like actually read the synopsis, but we played it Thanksgiving through Christmas. I mean, it was just
Oh
a
my
thing.
gosh.
And I thought it was just the funniest thing ever. Like, I know, like, if I watch it now, I'm sure looking back, those like, thinking about, Mark Hamill and
Mhm.
Harrison Ford, like, they look like they are like, what is happening? Type. Sometimes you'll look at their face and you're like, I think they're unsure how they got here at this point in this holiday
Right.
special, but just really fun memories where there was just any kind of weird Star Wars thing, my family had it. Like, my
Mhm.
uncles had it, and that just kind of fueled the obsession with me, and I think it was nice for them to be like, "This is okay." The fact that you like this because I think for a little bit, obviously it was big as the movies were blowing up and coming out, but I think especially for me as a girl, growing up in the 90s, you're like, well, you have these Barbies and you have these dream houses and everything, which I'm totally going to go see the Barbie movie, of course. Um, but yeah, I think just being able to have my dad and like the men in my family really say this is okay and this is
Mm,
cool and we don't care like what you're into. I mean, we're going to give you suggestions like this because we like this stuff.
right.
But I think that really helped, going back to my memories. That was something that they always kind of fostered in me of like, we want you to love whatever you love. If it happens to be what we like, great. But we're not going to pick and choose like, oh, you can only like these things because you're a girl.
Right.
And I think that's something I really appreciate now looking back at my childhood because obviously it's opened me up to so many avenues of, video games and women in
Mhm.
video games and movies and things like that. So,
Right. And I was gonna say, that probably helped shape who you are today.
yes.
Having that early support, from the male figures in your life. Maybe not your mom, as you described, as you mentioned,
Right.
but it kind of really shaped who you are today. Not even just in your taste in movies or anything like that, but just as a person, as your
Right.
personality is, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of amazing that something like Star Wars is able to shape an individual in a certain way. I mean,
Yes.
especially like you said, like back then, there really was like girls do this, boys do this,
Right.
and as unfair as it is, the and I'm not saying
Sure.
anybody who's on either side is going to turn out just fine, for the
Ex-
most part.
Exactly.
But to for you to be able to kind of break the mold and kind of go your own road with that just really leads to many other things, kind of like what you said, not
Right.
only with the what you watch, but video games and things like where the girls don't, we don't like girls here, that type of thing. So
Right.
it's great that that kind of shaped who you are today.
Definitely. Yes.
Well, we talked a little bit about gaming. We mentioned that, you and I are both streamers on Twitch.
Hmm.
And as for those who don't know, Twitch is it's a is a streaming platform where people like us just basically play video games and we can build communities. People who like us can, join our discords and all this stuff, all this fun stuff. But
Yes.
as part of your community, you've been
Hmm.
doing some movie marathons
I have.
in your Discord. Like what kind of movie marathons have you been doing?
Honestly, everything. But we specifically have been watching. So gave the viewers a choice. Always viewers' choice is great because then no one can say that it's unfair. It's always my motto. But they decided to go with Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3, which are some of my favorites. I
Mhm.
will say growing up, my dad was not having it with that. He's like, this is not the story. I'm disregarding episodes 1, 2, and 3. I remember seeing them in the theaters and my dad just like shaking his head in like disappointment. And it's funny now that those are my favorite. But I actually there was so many things in watching the marathon of those first 3 prequel episodes that I don't think I noticed before, or maybe you just don't see
Mhm.
those things when you're watching them in one-off sittings. where it's like, okay, we watch one movie, or sometimes they're on TV and you're like halfway through. Now that we have all these apps, I guess we could all go watch them as many times as we want. But I think there was just things in that movie that I'm like, wait, did I just never notice this before? And I will say one of the things I noticed in episode 3 is we have this scene at the end, right? Before the Mustafar scene, before the most quoted scene in this movie, where basically, Anakin's gonna go confront Palpatine, and Obi-Wan's gonna go off to find General Grievous, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have this scene there where he essentially says, goodbye, my friend, where Obi-Wan says, goodbye, my old friend, or I think he
Mhm.
just says, goodbye, my friend.
Mhm.
And I don't think it hit me in that moment of, oh my God, this is the last time that he's saying goodbye, that Obi-Wan and Anakin are saying goodbye in a way that is friend. Like the next time they see each other, he's already Darth Vader.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Oh, I see what you're saying.
it's like the gravitas, I guess, of the situation didn't even hit me until I'm sitting here, like just and I'm obviously during these marathons, sometimes I'm like doing other things or my phone or whatever. I'm like, oh, great.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, what? And I think I went even after the marathon to go watch it back. And I'm like, if the build up between these episodes 1, 2, and 3, you see this friendship that they've kind of created, almost, sibling.
Yeah.
In a sense of, I think during the Obi-Wan series, like he does call Anakin his brother. You
Right.
were my brother, and even I think in the Mustafar lines, he says the same thing. But you don't realize how much of a goodbye it is, I think.
Right.
And I kind of got emotional watching it. Like now that I watch it again, I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, he's saying goodbye. And we, the audience, now know. I think now that we know, like obviously you know the ending, but I'm like, we as the audience know what's going to happen, but these
Mhm.
characters don't. And it's like he truly says goodbye, my friend,
Right.
like alluding to something even more. So
Yeah.
just one of the big things that I saw with that one, and in those movies, and of course they're great movies.
Yeah.
I think they've definitely been more appreciated, and I've noticed that Hayden Christensen has kind of become more appreciated. I remember growing
Mhm.
up and people would say, this is not our Anakin, or this is like, we reject the whole story about this situation. And of course, at the time that brunt got, I think, taken on by him. And
Mhm.
it was so nice to then see the Obi-Wan series come out and people are just like, "Oh my God, we love you." And
Right. Yeah.
I always loved him, but I think it took a while for sometimes, I think like we talked about earlier, where you have generations that are like, "This is my Star Wars."
Right.
This is my thing and it can't change from this box. And I think the
Mhm.
fandom is becoming more open about a lot of stuff, which is great
Right.
because now you appreciate, like, I think we're finally like appreciating more of these movies as we're watching them.
Yeah, and I will fully admit I may have been in that camp where
I
I
don't blame
wasn't
you. It's
I
okay.
wasn't fully happy with not even the direction, but more of, I don't know, some of the lines I thought were kind of like, and this isn't
Yeah.
to fault him or
Right.
Hayden or,
Right.
you know, there were a couple of things where I'm just like, a little cringe there, like what was that one line he said? Oh, it's because I'm so in love with you. That whole exchange, I
There
was
was,
like,
yeah. Yeah. It was very cheesy. And I mean, and you look at it like, oh, well, they're writing a romance into this. Like
right,
they're trying to
yes,
get a love story into something that, you know, yes, in the older episodes, there was a love story between like Han and Leia, but it was very much like a side, like this is
yeah,
semi going on. We don't,
right,
we care about the action and the
right,
pew
right.
pews and all the things.
Hmm.
So, Yeah, there was definitely some cheesy writing, but you can't fault. I mean, looking back, you're like, that's not his fault, type of thing.
Right, exactly.
The other mention I wanted to make as that picture popped up is watching. This past Sunday we rewatched. Goodness, the episodes 4, 5, and 6,
Hmm.
and I didn't remember this at the time because it's been such a long time since I've watched them. That they went back and kind of altered some of the scenes
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, added extra stuff in on 4, and then at the end of 6 they added where they changed Anakin to basically be Hayden Christensen and not the actor that had originally played Darth Vader. And I think I remember there being some, like, I go off my dad a lot because, like, my dad's my feeding, of, like, "Is it good? What does he think?" Because that's usually what, like, you know, that's what
That's
I'm
what
gonna
kids.
get to hear.
That's what kids
Right,
do for their parents, right?
right. They're like, "Okay, what do you think, Dad?" And I remember he's like, "This is dumb. I don't like this." And I was like, it actually helps to me. I really liked it because
Hmm.
it kind of brings it full circle. The fact that we had these prequels and now that we have a face kind of that's our Anakin. That's
Right.
who he is and who we kind of saw grow up. And, looking back on that now, if you rewatch those episodes, like, we really don't have any knowledge of the other actor. And I apologize, I'm forgetting his name. Um, but it helps, like, connect us to that story.
Right.
And I think the other piece of that is they added a whole celebration scene to the end of 6 where you see all of these other planets celebrating
Mm-hmm.
at, destroying the empire. And I think that was another moment that hit me that I was like, "Oh yeah, there was actually other planets that were
Right. Yeah.
suffering from the empire."
Right.
And obviously we see that now with all of the shows that have come out that there were, other movements going on around the galaxy. But when you're just watching those standalone movies of 4, 5, and 6, they make this big deal of, "Oh, these are the only rebel alliances we have, so
Right.
the numbers are dwindling." And it's like, wait, there was all these other planets that people had going on. There
Mm-hmm.
was so many people that would be so happy that
Right.
the second Death Star is destroyed, type of thing. So I really thought that those changes were great, and I think I even read an interview with George Lucas about this specific scene where he's like, or I think people were upset about the whole, why did you change it to Hayden and things like that for the Force Ghost? And I think his first response was, "Well, first of all, it's made up, so I can do whatever I want," which I'm like,
I
"Great,
like George.
great response." But I think he explained it in a way of saying, when we look at this Force Ghost and you see the older version of Obi-Wan and Yoda, they didn't turn to the dark side. So we're seeing
Right.
them as they died. They were still a Jedi Knight, essentially. They were of the Force in a good, positive way. And it should reflect the same with Anakin. He was good up until he wasn't. And I don't think that
Right.
we should correlate, just because he was old or he had grown old in Darth Vader, that we should see it that way, that we would want to see this is how he was when he did have the good side in him, when there was
Mhm.
still good in him, type of thing. And I thought that was a great explanation. It makes sense to me, and I think it makes sense to the story. So,
Right. Yeah.
all in all, I think they did some great changes. Not everything, there's still some bits that I'm like, "Nah, a little cheesy." I mean, even the
Yeah.
old ones, I'm
Right. Right.
like, as a kid, obviously I overlooked this because I didn't understand. But yeah,
Right.
it's great, great watch overall.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it earlier how generational Star Wars
Mhm.
is. Like your dad had his Star Wars, we
Yeah,
have ours, and
yeah,
because I really think it's depending on where you were when it was like 10 years old, when you were 12 years old,
yeah,
and that's when you first saw Star Wars. Like that'll be just like when you were that age, and then that's when
right.
I don't know if that's when around the time the prequels came out, and then that's going to be some 12-year-olds when the sequel trilogy came out. So it just
Mhm.
where there's going to be people that are like, no, 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 that's not Star Wars. But but at the end of it, I think you are right in that we're starting to become a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more
Yeah.
accepting of kind of all things Star Wars. I mean, definitely, that's what we promote here is that,
Right.
it's all Star Wars, it's all great. We love most of it. There maybe, like you said, there are some things that
Yeah.
maybe
Like,
but
yeah.
but it's like family. You always, you either got that uncle or that cousin, you're just like, oh, I hope they don't show up to the reunion, but you're just like, oh, well, they're still
Right.
family. They're still
They're
family.
still
You'll still accept
family.
them.
I've got to talk to them for 5
Exactly.
minutes, it's fine.
Right. Yeah. So, we won't go into exactly what shows maybe will be in there, but but I think that overall, it's just Star Wars is great, and I just hopefully everybody can kind of accept it as for everybody, right?
Yes, agreed. Yeah. And I think the shows that they're
Hmm.
putting out now is very much helped. My son is 12, and it's
Hmm.
it's been interesting because he doesn't hold the same love for
Hmm.
Star Wars. And so I'm like, ah, I want
Yeah.
to
How does
give
that?
you
Yeah.
these
I was about to,
things.
I was about to
How
say,
does
how
this
does that feel?
happen? How does this happen? Thankfully the
Right.
video game stuff is there. But it's
Hmm.
nice to know that what he does love, he'll pick and choose. He's very much into like more Lego Star Wars and things like that.
Okay.
And so it makes me proud because I'm like, thinking back as a kid, some of the stuff that we enjoy now, I'm like, it wouldn't have really been accepted by some certain gen of like, that's not Star Wars, or that's not part of the
Mm-hmm.
movies, or this is different. So it's nice to get to show him those things that like there's so much
Yeah.
more than when we
Right.
were growing up.
And that's what we talk about here a lot too, is that there's just literally so much Star Wars that
Yes.
you gotta find something.
You'll
And
find your
I'm glad.
thing.
Yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
it's like for him is Legos or whatever it is. So but there's literally shows coming out every other month, or it feels like, or every
Yeah.
year. I mean, Mandalorian was a huge hit. I mean,
Oh yeah.
with me with the Mandalorian, I was just like, okay, like this, when they announced it,
Yeah.
I was literally like, all right, cool, more Star Wars. I don't really,
Right.
little did I know, or anyone knew, that this was going to be like, how Marvel has like all their phases, like they have this huge timeline, and I had no idea that Mandalorian was going to be like the ground zero of all of that to start off
Right.
everything else, animated series, more shows and live action,
Yeah.
more video games. I had no idea that was where we were going when that came up.
No. Agreed.
Yeah, so I think the being able to find your niche, into Star Wars, and I'm glad your son. I was about to say, like, it kind of broke my heart when you said, like, oh no, like he wasn't in like the movies. Oh no, there's got to be something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, that's great. That is that's cool that you are able to enjoy that with your community, and even now, even how many years later, we still find little things in Star Wars
I know.
that surprise us.
I know. It's great. Go watch the movies.
Yes, watch them all together now.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so one last thing here: if you could find out more about any particular character, or story within Star Wars, what would it be? What kind of stories would you want to learn more about?
So I would say, so I was recently watching Andor again, and
Mhm.
I think growing up too, Mon Mothma, I feel like
Mhm.
I don't really know a lot about her. And I think when I was younger and watching the older, or the older movies, and I would be like, who is that? Like, I
Mhm.
know we're supposed to take direction from her, but also like, who is that? Why is she so important? Type of thing. And I know they explore it quite a bit in Andor, and obviously there's, I think during maybe the Clone Wars, they talk a lot
Mhm.
about, her being on the Senate, and she was very close with Padme and the Organas. But I think I would just love to know like a whole, like, how did she grow up? What was
Mhm.
her upbringing? What led her? I mean, we know obviously the factors that led her, but just more information about her.
Mhm.
I feel like she was always kind of this presence
Right.
in different shows and books and things like that, but I don't know that we know truly know about her.
Right.
We've delved into other characters a ton. I would love to get to know her more. My other one was going to be Chewbacca. I think it would be
Oh.
very hard to kind of about him. I'd asked my dad this, and he's like, I would love to know more about Chewbacca,
Yeah.
have his own show. And I was
Well,
like,
he does.
Dad,
It's called the Holiday Special. Isn't that his
that's what I
family?
said. I'm like, it's about his family, Dad. Do you not remember? It's for Life Day.
Yeah, that's right.
But and I was like, I think they would also have to have subtitles because I don't know
Mhm.
if we would be able. But it's a great point.
Mhm.
We do find out about them helping during the Clone Wars and
Mhm.
him kind of getting, after everyone's exiled with the Jedis and that happening.
Right, yeah.
It kind of
Kinda
is
what happened there. Yeah, what happened when after that? We don't really
right. I would
know.
love to know more about how did he get to where he is? How did he meet up with Han and things like
Yeah,
that.
right, yeah.
So those would be, I would say, my two.
Yeah, I
Definitely
think I
know
think
more.
especially with the Mon Mothma one,
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting. And Andor is another one that completely blindsided me. I
Yeah.
was interested in it because I love Rogue One,
Mhm.
so, I was
Yes,
excited to
agreed.
see a little bit more about his story.
Mhm.
But to the depth they went into in that series, really great writing, really great characters. One of
Yes.
them is Mon Mothma, obviously.
Yeah.
To the point where we're just like, yeah, we want more Mon Mothma. Like there was a point
Yeah.
where I kind of forgot that this was an Andor show. It was like this was the Mon Mothma hour almost.
Yes.
And I was fine with it. I loved that actress. I loved just
Mhm.
everything about her. So I think
Agreed.
that was a great addition. Andor just in itself is just a great addition. I know that there are some people that thought it was kind of slow and all this stuff in especially the first couple episodes, but
Yeah.
get through those episodes. I promise those it has a great payoff.
That's what I was gonna say. It has a great payoff if you could just stay with it long enough, I think, to get through. And I think it brought me back to the thought of when you had maybe episodes 1 and 2 of Star Wars and people are like, "We don't wanna hear about politics and the Senate," and,
Right.
when
Yeah.
they would go into stuff like that. And I think it kind of felt that way too, where it's very political. You're learning more about what's going on behind the scenes, but it's kind of crucial to know
Right.
for the rest of the show, and you
Hmm.
kind of get intrigued by it a little bit of look at all these moving, almost like a moving chessboard. I mean, look at
Hmm.
all of these things that had to kind of go right for them
Right.
behind the scenes for episode 4 to even start
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to
Right.
go forward into it. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's all connecting. That's one of my favorite
I
things
know.
about Star Wars is that you could literally have this random show about one character in that was in one movie,
Right.
and it connects with everything else that has happened. So
Agreed.
that's like
I
one of my
love it.
favorite things to see in Star Wars. So whenever they create a new show, I'm like, ooh, where does this fit in? So I'm
Right.
excited to see where I could be like, ooh, like that what is that one meme? Is it of Captain America? Like, oh, I got that reference. That,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That's like me every time I watch
That's how I
anything Star
feel.
Wars. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
It's so that is Star Wars for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was great, Alex. I
Thank
hope
you
you
so
had
much.
a good time. But I think that was enough. I think we called this an episode for tonight.
It
So
was so fun.
as always, thank you, Gibbo, for all the technical behind the scenes work that you
Yes.
did. Especially when you just snapped and we all of a sudden we had Alex on the screen. That was amazing.
Right.
Look, it has everything here. And of course, Alex, thank you for filling in
Of
today for
course.
Ben. I
Thank
hope you had a
you.
great time.
I did.
But tell us where, if anybody wanted to know, where can we find you on the internet?
I stream on Twitch at Miss Alex Games. There's some underscores under there. I've heard sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to add those in as you're spelling. So just watch. There's 2 underscores in between Miss Alex Games.
So,
But
like,
go ahead.
especially when we add it to Switch, if you can add me
Right.
to,
Right.
we have a story about that, don't we?
There's a story, yes. Yeah, so funny. But I stream basically Monday through Thursday. I'm out there playing right now. I'm playing through Tears of the Kingdom. So if that's up your guys' alley, feel free to stop by and watch. I'm on Twitter as well. Usually I put out funny movie quotes, or like the other day, I put out a funny garage sale sign that I saw. So feel free to follow me on there for any updates. And then Instagram as well. They're all miss_Alex_games. So if you just type that in, it should pop up for you. And I try to post things every day about my life, nerdy stuff. I love food.
Some working
So
out too.
working
I see.
out,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
trying to
swole
get into
pictures, I
that
see it.
swole life. So being forced into it by my healthcare providers. So that's a story. But yes, so if you want to just follow along, I'm usually pretty funny. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Yes, everyone go follow Alex. She's a joy, as you've seen today on the episode.
Thank you.
But on to next week. We will actually be on a break next week. There will be no new episode next Thursday, but we are planning for another guest spot hopefully the following week. So that would be on July 13th. But next week, for those in America, it is July 4th. So for those who celebrate, happy 4th of July, and I hope you have a safe and wonderful one there. Yeah, and I think that's it for today. Once again, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Again, we're getting closer and closer to 150 subscribers, so we would appreciate it. And of course, follow us on any podcast platform of your choosing, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Boomplay. I'm gonna keep using that one. I have no idea. I still have no idea what that is, but and of course,
Pretty
don't
fun.
forget us. Don't forget to check us out on our socials at Hoth Hangout on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. Any
you.
last words for our viewers?
Oh, I will say, may the force be with you,
That's right.
and you as well. So I will leave you with that.
Yes, thank you everyone for your support, your continuing support here with the Hoth Hangout. And she kind of beat me to it, but yes, may the force be with you.